Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram cha Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita by Satsvarup Das Goswami, Volume 2, Planting the Seed, New York City, 1965 to 1966. Chapter 15. It will not be possible to assist you. February 5th of 1966. So Prabhupada is struggling in New York, asking different people to sponsor one building so he can start his center there, temple there, but nothing yet. Discouragement came to the plans Srila Prabhupada had formed around the promise of support by Padmapat Singhania. The Dwarkawala wrote to express his dissatisfaction with the 72nd Street building. I'm afraid that I cannot agree with the suggestion that you should buy a small house and erect something on top of it. Unfortunately, such kind of proposal will not suit me. The temple must be a small one, but it must be constructed properly. I quite agree that you cannot spend a lot of money at present, but within the amount the government may sanction, you should build something according to the architecture of Indian temples. Then only we will be able to create some impression on the American people. This is all I can write to you in this connection. I am very grateful for your taking the trouble of writing. Prabhupada did not take this letter as final. He maintained hope that Sir Padmapat Singhania would still give money for the temple if only the transfer of money could be arranged. He continued writing his godbrothers and other devotees, asking them to try to secure the government sanction. He maintained his same aspirations, even though his sole prospective donor had rejected his scheme of a chakra and dome atop a conventional two-story building. February 15th. He moved from room 501 downstairs 2 floors to room all his own. I have changed my room to room 307 in the same building as above mentioned for better air and light. It's on the roadside junction of two roads, the Columbus Avenue and 72nd Street. According to Dr. Mishra, Prabhupada moved in order to have his own place independent of the Mishra Yoga Society. February 16th, Prabhupada wrote to the proprietors of the Universal Book House of Bombay, giving some hints of selling his Srimad Bhagavatam in the Bombay area. He explained that he was trying to establish a Radha Krishna temple and that a big industrialist of India has promised to pay for the cost. Since it seemed that he might stay in the United States for many more days, he wanted the book house to take increased charge of selling his books throughout India. They were his agent for selling his books in Maharashtra. But now what he recommended that take the responsibility in all provinces and introduce his books in colleges and universities throughout India. He also requested that they credit his bank account there for the books sold so far. So he's keeping track of that also. February 26th, Mr. A.P. Dharwadkar of the Universal Book House replied, I cannot give you a very happy news on the progress of the sale of Srimad Bhagavatam because the subject is religious and only a small section of society may personally be interested in the books. We try to push them through some booksellers to Nagpur, Ahmedabad, Pune, etc., but regret to inform you that after some time, these booksellers return the books for want of response. As such, we are not only unenthusiastic to agree to your proposal of taking up sales for all India, but we are just thinking of requesting you to nominate some other people in our place to represent your sale program in Maharashtra. So far, they had sold only 6 sets of his books, for which they were about to transfer rupees 172 to his account. This was hardly encouraging to the author. Again, India was not interested. Even in the land of religion, religious subjects were only for a small section of the society. March 4th, another reverse. On February 8th, Srila Prabhupada returned to India's new Prime Minister, Indira Gandhi, requesting her to sanction the release of money from India. A reply dated February 25th, New Delhi, came from the Prime Minister's official secretary, Mr. L.K. Gha. Dear Swamiji, the Prime Minister has seen your letter of February 8, 1966. She appreciates the spirit which prompted you to carry the spiritual message of Srimad Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam to other countries. Owing to the critical foreign exchange situation which the country is facing, it is greatly regretted that it will not be possible to assist you from here in your plan to set up a Radha Krishna temple. But Prabhupada had other hopes. After writing to the Prime Minister, he had written again to Tirtha Maharaj, asking him to request Dr. Radhakrishnan to persuade the government to sanction the release of funds. He waited for 1 month, no answer. Apparently, his godbrothers felt little obligation towards preaching in America. He had written that he needed encouragement from them to continue in America because it was so expensive. He had explained that he was spending the equivalent of 1,000 rupees a month. As such, I am counting every day to receive your favorable replies. But there was no reply. March 18th. He wrote again to Sir Padmapat Singhania, requesting him to send a man from India to supervise work on the temple in New York, as Mr. Singhania had previously suggested. There is no record of any reply to this request. Prabhupada wrote again to Sumati Morarji, requesting her to please send him a mridanga to accompany his chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. He also requested her that in the future, when he would send many men from India, she obliged by giving them free passage on Sindhya steamship lines. No reply. As his financial situation became more urgent and his hopes more strained, his support from India withdrew in silence. His unanswered correspondence was itself a kind of message, loud and clear. We cannot help you. Although no one encouraged him, Srila Prabhupada trusted in the order of his spiritual master and the will of Krishna. The word from the Prime Minister regarding government sanction had been a definite no. But he had received another extension of his visa. Now his last hope was Sir Padmapat Singhania. Prabhupada knew that he was so influential a man in India that if he wanted, he could send the money. He was Prabhupada's final hope. April 2nd. Mr. Singhania did not reply personally. He had his secretary, Mr. Ishwar Iyer, write to Prabhupada, thoroughly discouraging his last hopes for purchasing a building in New York. I regret to write that Sri Padmapadji is not interested in the scheme of building a Radha Krishna temple in New York at present. In regard to the inquiry contained in the last paragraph of your letter, Shri Padmapadji duly received your books of Srimad Bhagavatam from your Delhi office. Yours faithfully. But Prabhupada, he just never lost hope. That was more important. Seeing him from a distance, a tiny figure walking Manhattan streets and avenues among many other tiny figures, a foreigner whose visa had almost run out, we come upon only the external appearance of Srila Prabhupada. These days of struggle were real enough and very difficult, but his transcendental consciousness was always predominant. He was not living in Manhattan consciousness, but was absorbed in dependence upon Krishna. Just as when on the Jaladuta he had suffered his heart attacks, his reading of Chaitanya Charitamrita had supplied him the nectarine of life. He had already succeeded. Certainly he wanted to provide Radha and Krishna a temple in New York. But his success was that he was remembering Krishna, even in New York City, in the winter of 1965-66, whether the world recognized him or not. Not a day went by when he did not work on Krishna's book, Srimad Bhagavatam. And not a day went by when he did not offer food to Krishna and speak on Krishna's philosophy of Bhagavad Gita. Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, for one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost to him. And he is never lost to me. And Krishna shows his pure devotees that my devotee will never be vanquished. There was never any doubt about this for Prabhupada. The only question was whether Americans would take notice of the pure devotee in their midst. At this point, it seemed that no one was going to take him seriously. So, thus ends the 15th chapter. We can start 16th chapter, Free to Preach. Prabhupada wrote, here I am now sitting in New York, the world's greatest city and a magnificent city, but my heart is always hankering after Vrindavan. I shall be very happy to return to my Vrindavan, that sacred place. But then, why are you here now? Because it is my duty. I have brought some message for you people because I have been ordered by my superior, my spiritual master. Whatever you learned, you should go to the Western countries and you must distribute this knowledge. So in spite of all my difficulties, all my inconveniences, I am here because I'm obligated by duty. From a lecture by Srila Prabhupada. Room 307, the room which he was in now, was never meant for use as a residence or ashram or lecture hall. It was only a small, narrow office without furniture or a telephone. Its door held a large pane of frosted glass, a kind common in old offices. Above the door was a glass-paned transom. Prabhupada placed his blankets on the floor before his metal footlocker, which now became a makeshift desk where he wrote. He slept on the floor. There were no facilities here for cooking or even for bathing, so daily he had to walk to Dr. Mishra's apartment. Wow. He just took an office for rent. When he had lived in room 501 at Dr. Mishra's yoga ashram, Dr. Mishra had financed his needs. But now Prabhupada was on his own, and whatever he could raise by selling his books, he would have to use for his daily maintenance and for the monthly rent of $72. So that was quite a bit at that time. He noted that for a little powdered chili, the West End superette charged 75 cents, 10 times what he would have paid in India. He had no guaranteed income, his expenses had increased, and his physical comforts had reduced. But at least he had his own place. Now he was free to preach as he liked. He had come to America to speak about Krishna, and even from the beginning he had found the opportunity to do so. Whether at an informal get-together in the Agarwal's living room or before a formal gathering at the Butler Lions Club, Dr. Norman Brown's Sanskrit class, Dr. Mishra's Yoga Society, or the Tagore Society. But he did not attach much importance to lecturing, where the people who gathered would hear him only once. This was the main reason he wanted his own building in New York, so that people could come regularly, chant Hare Krishna, take prasadam in his company, and hear him speak from Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Moving out of the yoga studio into the small office downstairs gave Prabhupada what he was looking for, his own place, but not even euphemistically could that place be called a temple. His name was on the door. Anyone seeking him there could find him, but who would come in there? By its opulence and beauty, a temple was supposed to attract people to Krishna. But room 307 was just the opposite. It was bare poverty. Even a person interested in spiritual topics would find it uncomfortable to sit on the rugless floor of a room shaped like a narrow railroad car. I mean, it was just an office building, office area. One of Dr. Mishra's students had donated a reel-to-reel tape recorder, and Prabhupada recorded some of his solitary bhajans, which he sang to his own accompaniment of hand cymbals. He also recorded a long philosophical essay, Introduction to Gitopanishad. Even if no one attends, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati had told him, You can go on chanting to the four walls. But since he was now free to speak his message in the new situation God had provided, he decided to lecture 3 evenings a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, to whoever would come. His first audience consisted mainly of people who had heard about him or met him at Dr. Mishra's yoga studio. And despite the poverty of his room, the meetings became a source of new life for him. And this, when it says he recorded a long philosophical essay, Introduction to Gita Upanishad. So this later, his disciples put it in the Gita, Bhagavad Gita as it is, introduction. They put the whole lecture as it is, as an introduction. March 18th, he expressed his optimism in a letter to Sumati Morarji. I was very much encouraged when you wrote to say, I feel that you should stay there until you fully recover from your illness and return only after you have completed your mission. I think these lines dictated by you are the words of Lord Balakrishna expressed through your goodness. You will be pleased to know that I have improved my health back to normal and my missionary work is nicely progressing. I hope my project to start a temple of Sri Radha Krishna will also be realized by the grace of the Lord. Since I came to New York from Butler, Pennsylvania, I have rented the above room at $70 per month. And I am delivering lectures on the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, accompanied by Sankirtan, and the American ladies and gentlemen come to hear me. You will be surprised to know that they do not understand the language of Sankirtan, yet they hear with attention. The movement which I have started here is completely new to them, because the Americans are generally acquainted with the Indian yoga gymnastics as performed by some Indian yogis here. They have never heard of the bhakti cult or the science of Krishna before, and still they're hearing me. This is a great success for me. Outside the closed windows of room 307, the late winter night has fallen. Prabhupada's words are punctuated with the muted sounds of car horns and occasional sirens from the street, and sometimes by the startling chords of a lonely foghorn on the Hudson. Hudson means the Hudson River. Although bare, the room is warm. Prabhupada is speaking on the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Now Arjuna is perplexed. He's perplexed about whether to fight or not to. After seeing in front of him his relatives with whom he was to fight, he was perplexed. And there was some argument with Krishna. Now here is a point. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prabhupada's voice is earnest, persuading. Sometimes his speech becomes high-pitched and breaks with urgency. His cultured British diction bears a heavy Bengali accent. Suddenly he pauses in his lecture and addresses someone in the room. Prabhupada, what is that? Man, what? Prabhupada, what's that? What's this book? Man, well, this is a translation of the Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada is obviously displeased that while he is speaking, someone is looking through a book. This is hardly like the respect offered to learned speakers described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhupada, well, no, you can hear me. Man, I'm hearing. Prabhupada, yes, don't turn your attention, just hear me. He's taking the role of a teacher, correcting his student. Of course, there is no compelling reason why any of his casual guests should feel obliged to obey. He simply begs for their attention and yet demands it. Just hear me, as he attempts to convince them of Krishna consciousness. I mean, yes, this is what a spiritual guru would expect, but American culture is totally different, completely different. Even in the college classroom, the students could literally do anything, and the teacher keeps on teaching. He doesn't correct them. This is the free society that America has created. This is, I mean, I've seen when I was doing my master's. In the class, I was taking one undergrad course, concrete design. So I wanted to learn the American way. In the class, professor is speaking. Front row students, 3 or 4 students, they brought this milk cereal and the bowl. They put cereal in the bowl, had milk cartons, they put milk in that bowl, and they were eating in the class and making all sorts of crunchy noise. And professor didn't say anything to them. You have heard that one must accept the spiritual master after careful examination, just as one selects a bride or bridegroom after careful examination. In India, they're very careful because the marriage of boys and girls take place under the guidance of the parents. So the parents very carefully see to it. Similarly, one has to accept the spiritual master. It is necessary. According to Vedic injunctions, everyone should have a spiritual master. Perhaps you have seen a sacred thread. We have got sacred thread. Mr. Cohen, you have seen sacred thread. Prabhupada pauses. His audience has not noted the thin white cords he wears beneath his shirt across the upper part of his body. For thousands of years, Brahmins in India have worn such threads placed diagonally across the torso, looped over the left shoulder and down to the right waist. A Brahmin holds his thread in his right hand while chanting the sacred Gayatri mantra 3 times a day. But this is all strange indeed to Americans. Prabhupada himself is exotic to them. His grey chadar wrapped around his shoulders, he sits cross-legged and erect on a thin pillow, and they sit facing him on the other side of his trunk, which now serves as a desk and a lectern. They're close together in the narrowness of the room. He is frail and small and foreign to them, yet somehow is completely assured, in a way that has nothing to do with being a foreigner in New York. Visitors sense his strong presence. 2 white lines of clay run neatly vertical on his forehead. His pale peach clothes are gathered in loose folds around his body. He pauses only a few seconds to inquire whether they have seen a sacred thread. That sacred thread, or Janevi, is a sign that a person has a spiritual master. Here, of course, there is no such distinction, but according to the Hindu system, a married girl also has some sign so that people can understand that the girl is married. She wears a red mark so that others may know that she is married. And according to the division in the hair, what is that line called? Man, part, proper. Part. What is the spelling? Man, part, P-A-R-T, proper. Part. This parting also has some meaning. They know English and he knows the Gita, but he knows a good deal of English, whereas they know practically nothing of the Gita, which he has to spoon feed to them. But occasionally he asks their help in English vocabulary. When the part is in the middle, then the girl has her husband. When she's coming from a respectable family, and if the part is there, then she is a prostitute, means on the left or right. With a slight gesture, he raises his hand toward, but never really reaching his head. Yet somehow the half gesture clearly indicates a part on the side of the head. And then again, when a girl is well dressed, it should be understood that she has her husband at home. And when she is not well dressed, it is to be understood that her husband is away from home. You see? And a widow's dress, there are so many symptoms. So similarly, the sacred thread is a sign that a person has accepted a spiritual master, just as a red mark symbolizes that a girl has a husband. So much of struggle, so much of struggle. Amazing. Okay, I guess we can stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments? Okay, you all have safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.